It still was respectable ratings by the end, but that slide happens. And what that means is when you get to the end of your contract, do you keep the show going? Well, Discovery's not going to want to.
For years, MythBusters wasn't just a television show, it was a cultural phenomenon. With explosions, daring experiments, and wild science projects, the Discovery Channel series became one of the most beloved programs in modern TV history. At its core were two larger-than-life personalities, Adam Savage and Jamie Hyneman, the unlikely duo whose chemistry, or sometimes lack thereof, kept viewers glued to the screen for more than a decade. But despite its popularity, the show came to an abrupt and controversial end in 2016, leaving fans stunned and desperate for answers. For years, speculation ran rampant. Did Adam and Jamie hate each other? Was Discovery tired of footing the bill for the elaborate stunts? Or were there darker reasons hidden behind the scenes? Both Adam and Jamie remained notoriously quiet about the show's cancellation, giving vague statements that only fueled more rumors. Fans were left wondering, what really happened? Now, at 58 years old, Adam Savage is finally ready to break his silence. In rare interviews and personal reflections, he has revealed shocking behind-the-scenes truths about the end of MythBusters, from escalating creative tensions to clashes with the network, and from the hidden toll of the show's dangerous stunts to the strained partnership between Adam and Jamie. The real reasons for cancellation are far more complicated and far darker than anyone could have imagined. In this documentary-style deep dive, we'll uncover Adam's long-guarded explanation, peel back the layers of secrecy, and reveal the disturbing reality of why MythBusters was canceled when it was still at the height of its fame. What Adam admits now may forever change the way fans remember the groundbreaking show. When MythBusters first premiered in 2003, few could have predicted just how massive an impact it would have. The concept was deceptively simple. Take myths, urban legends, movie scenes, and wild internet rumors, and test them using science, engineering, and an abundance of creativity. But the execution was nothing short of revolutionary. Hosted by special effects experts Adam Savage and Jamie Hyneman, the show quickly captured the imagination of audiences around the world. It wasn't just entertainment, it was science brought to life in a way that was exciting, dangerous, and often hilarious. Adam Savage, with his wild energy, childlike enthusiasm, and boundless curiosity, became the heart of the show for many fans. His dynamic personality contrasted perfectly with Jamie Hyneman's stoic, methodical approach. Together they embodied the balance between chaos and order, passion and precision, humor and seriousness. Their odd couple dynamic became one of the most talked-about aspects of the series, and it was central to its success. The show didn't just test myths, it ignited curiosity. Millions of viewers, from school children to professional scientists, found themselves inspired to look at the world differently. Teachers began using MythBusters in classrooms, while engineering and science programs credited the show with sparking interest in the next generation of innovators. At its peak, the series was airing in over 100 countries and reaching tens of millions of viewers. But while the explosions and high-octane experiments were what drew people in, there was something deeper at play. MythBusters became a cultural touchstone because it celebrated the value of skepticism, inquiry, and evidence-based thinking. It taught audiences not to take things at face value, but to ask questions and, if necessary, to blow things up in the pursuit of truth. Behind the scenes, though, the scale of the show was enormous. Each episode required extensive planning, massive budgets, and an extraordinary level of safety precautions. From rigging vehicles for crashes to orchestrating massive explosions in deserted quarries, the team constantly pushed the limits of what could be done on television. This meant long hours, grueling schedules, and immense pressure on both Adam and Jamie, as well as the entire crew. From the outside, it looked like a dream job, and in many ways, it was. But even as the show rose to global fame, cracks were beginning to show. Adam and Jamie, despite their undeniable chemistry on camera, had very different personalities and philosophies, and their relationship was often described as more of a marriage of necessity than a genuine friendship. The pressures of keeping MythBusters running at such a high level were beginning to take their toll. Still, in those early years, nothing could overshadow the incredible success of the show. The team became household names, the experiments grew more ambitious, and MythBusters established itself as one of Discovery Channel's crown jewels. For over a decade, it seemed unstoppable, a perfect mix of science, spectacle, and personality that redefined what educational entertainment could be. Yet even then, Adam Savage would later admit, there were already signs that the very elements making the show such a hit could one day contribute to its downfall. The expectations were sky high, the costs were spiraling, and the personal strain on the hosts was mounting. The stage was quietly being set for one of the most shocking cancellations in television history. As MythBusters marched deeper into its run, the polished explosions and thrilling experiments masked a much more complicated story unfolding behind the cameras. Fans adored Adam Savage and Jamie Hyneman's dynamic, often describing them as the perfect odd couple, but the truth was more complicated. Adam's boundless enthusiasm, humor, and chaos clashed with Jamie's reserved, disciplined, and meticulous approach. On screen, that tension was entertaining. Off screen, it was far more difficult to manage. Adam later admitted in interviews that he and Jamie were never friends in the traditional sense. "We didn't hang out after work," he said bluntly. "We didn't have dinner together. Our relationship was strictly professional." For years, fans believed their banter and differences were exaggerated for television, but in reality, the friction was genuine. The two respected each other's skills immensely, but their personalities couldn't have been more different. Adam was spontaneous and emotional, while Jamie was pragmatic and emotionally distant. That difference became increasingly stressful as the show grew more demanding. Each episode of MythBusters required massive preparation. From sourcing cars to crash tests, to building giant rigs, to coordinating pyrotechnics with safety teams and local authorities, the workload was staggering. Discovery executives expected bigger, more spectacular stunts each season, and the crew constantly worked long hours under intense pressure. Adam, who often thrived on adrenaline and creativity, found himself stretched thin while Jamie retreated further into his reserved, no-nonsense demeanor. The toll wasn't just professional, it was deeply personal. Both men sacrificed huge portions of their lives for the show. Adam spoke openly about the physical and emotional exhaustion, describing weeks where filming felt like a grind that never stopped. Injuries were also frequent. The dangerous stunts came with risks, and although safety was always a priority, accidents and close calls weighed heavily on the cast and crew. For Adam, the danger was thrilling but draining. For Jamie, it was another reason to grow wary of continuing at such a punishing pace. Adding to the tension was Discovery's growing control over the show. As MythBusters became one of the network's most valuable properties, executives pushed for more sensational episodes, sometimes prioritizing spectacle over science. Adam later revealed that this creative tug-of-war created frustration. He and Jamie wanted to preserve the integrity of the show as a scientific endeavor, but the network often pushed for bigger booms and flashier results. The constant battle between authentic experimentation and entertainment spectacle left the hosts feeling conflicted. One of the most significant cracks appeared when the show's beloved build team, Carrie Byron, Tori Belleci, and Grant Imahara, were abruptly let go in 2014. The decision blindsided fans and even surprised Adam and Jamie. The build team had become essential to the show's personality, splitting up experiments and injecting humor and diversity into the cast. Discovery, however, insisted on refocusing on the original duo. For Adam, it was a heartbreaking blow. He cared deeply about Carrie, Tori, and Grant, and their absence not only upset fans but also deepened the strain between him and Jamie, as the smaller team meant even heavier workloads for the hosts. The departure of the build team also created a ripple effect among the fan base. Longtime viewers expressed frustration, claiming the show had lost its heart. Ratings began to slide, and while MythBusters was still popular, the writing was on the wall. Behind closed doors, Adam later admitted that both he and Jamie felt increasingly burned out. What had once been an exhilarating, groundbreaking project now felt like a relentless machine, demanding more than they could give. The stress amplified the already fragile relationship between Adam and Jamie. They never descended into outright hostility, But their inability to connect outside of work meant they lacked the kind of friendship that might have helped them weather the storm. "We tolerated each other," Adam confessed. "And I think that was enough to make the show great. But it wasn't enough to make it last forever." By this point, the show had been running for over a decade, and the cracks were impossible to ignore. The network wanted more, the hosts wanted less, and their personal dynamic was stretched to the breaking point. Fans had no idea of the growing storm, but Adam Savage now admits that the cancellation of MythBusters wasn't just about ratings or budgets. It was about people, relationships, and the hidden cost of sustaining one of the most ambitious science shows ever made. The pressure cooker was reaching its limit, and soon Adam and Jamie would face the inevitable. MythBusters couldn't survive much longer. By the mid-2010s, MythBusters had already cemented its place in pop culture. Explosions, crashes, and mind-bending experiments had captivated audiences for over a decade. But while fans were still invested, behind the scenes, the show was beginning to unravel. For Adam Savage, the warning signs were impossible to ignore, and the reality was far more complicated than most viewers ever realized. The first major fracture came in 2014 with the sudden dismissal of Carrie Byron, Tori Balaci, and Grant Imahara, the build team. For years, they had become fan favorites, carrying storylines, experimenting with myths, and offering a fresh dynamic that balanced Adam and Jamie's odd couple energy. Their departure wasn't the choice of the hosts, but rather a decision from Discovery executives to streamline the show back to its original duo. Adam later admitted he was heartbroken by this decision. Not only had Carrie, Tori, and Grant become close colleagues, but their exit shifted the entire balance of the show. Fan backlash was immediate, and many saw it as the beginning of the end. Without the build team, more weight fell on Adam and Jamie, and the cracks in their working relationship widened. They continued to deliver professional performances on camera, but privately their communication grew strained. Adam would later confess that their partnership had always been built on respect, not friendship, and the long grind of production had left both men exhausted. "We were partners, not friends," he admitted. And while that worked for the show, it didn't help when things got tough. At the same time, the creative tug-of-war with Discovery was escalating. The network wanted bigger explosions, more spectacular visuals, and ratings-driven stunts, while Adam and Jamie increasingly felt that the scientific integrity of the show was being compromised. Episodes that once revolved around quirky questions, like whether a penny dropped from a skyscraper could kill someone, were now dominated by large-scale demolitions and cinematic recreations. Adam loved the science, but he began to feel the heart of MythBusters was slipping away. Adding to the strain was the physical and emotional toll. By 2015, both Adam and Jamie had endured years of dangerous stunts, long filming schedules, and the constant pressure of keeping the show fresh. Adam later revealed that the relentless pace left him burnt out and questioning whether continuing was worth it. He also acknowledged that the stress took a toll on his health, both mentally and physically. "We were constantly pushing boundaries," he explained, "but at some point, you realize the cost of that." The final blow came when Discovery executives informed Adam and Jamie that the show would be canceled after its 14th season in 2016. Publicly, the network framed it as a natural conclusion to a long and successful run. Privately, however, Adam revealed there was more to the story. Ratings had slipped after the build team's departure, production costs remained enormous, and the strained partnership between Adam and Jamie made the show increasingly difficult to produce. For Discovery, it was a business decision. For Adam, it was devastating. Adam later admitted that hearing the news felt like a punch in the gut. After dedicating more than a decade of his life to MythBusters, he wasn't ready to let go. But he also acknowledged that deep down, he knew the end was coming. The show had reached a breaking point, and the combination of network pressure, personal strain, and creative burnout made continuation impossible. "It was one of the hardest things I've ever gone through," he confessed. When the cancellation was announced publicly, fans were outraged. Many blamed Discovery for mishandling the show, while others speculated about feuds between Adam and Jamie. Rumors swirled online, with some claiming the hosts couldn't stand each other. Adam, however, pushed back against this narrative. He clarified that while he and Jamie were not friends, they respected each other deeply and had accomplished something extraordinary together. "We weren't buddies," he said, "but we were partners. And we built something bigger than both of us." In interviews after the cancellation, Adam also revealed the emotional toll of saying goodbye. Filming the final season was bittersweet, as he and Jamie revisited classic myths, reconnected with longtime fans, and reflected on their legacy. "Every day felt like a goodbye," Adam said, "and it was hard not to feel the weight of what we were losing." The breaking point had finally arrived. What had begun as a quirky experiment in 2003 ended in 2016 as one of the most iconic science shows ever made. For Adam, the cancellation was both a relief and a heartbreak, a chance to step away from the relentless grind, but also the painful loss of a project that had defined his life. What remained was a complicated truth. MythBusters didn't just end because of ratings or because Adam and Jamie didn't get along. It ended because the weight of success had become too much to carry.